Hey everybody, welcome to Friday PM. It's Luigi Scarcelli here. We got a great show for you tonight, but without further ado, my first guest is a good friend of mine, great musician, overall artist, a guy who's kind of like a modern Renaissance man in a lot of ways. You're kind of a lot of different artistic things. Dan Capaldi, aka Sea Level. Dan has been a fixture in the musical scene for a bit of time, even though he's a young guy. So how's it going, Dan? Good to see you. A big introduction for you.
Good. Thank you for having me here. I'm
Sure,
really excited
sure, no
to
problem.
finally got to do this.
Yeah, exactly. We got the window out here. So it's Christmas time now. Dan is going to be performing with us live on New Year's Eve. The big special is Sea Level. We're going to get around a little bit to that and find out more of the kind of the origins of that music because it's very modern, kind of technological. But I really want to talk also like just all your experiences in the musical scene in Maine. But you grew up, I think, in New York, right? Or
No, actually, I was born in Springfield, Massachusetts.
okay, Massachusetts.
That was kind of where the Italians went from. They came from Brooklyn,
Okay.
and then I grew up in West Falmouth, pretty much in the woods of West Falmouth.
So your family's Italian, and they kind of migrated out of city because it was like you got a little bit of money, or was your family educational or something? Or?
No. At least my dad's side, who was the Sicilian side,
Right.
my grandfather came pretty much to work and send money back to his family, and then started a family. Yeah, there's a lot of mystery about my grandfather. I wish I got to know him better. But then, Springfield, East Longmeadow, my parents met, and we moved up here. I was 4 when we moved here. So.
I have kind of the same story with my grandfather. Same thing, died early. I think it's the Italian men in those days. It was a hard life. They didn't always get to live, to the ripe old ages. And you never know all of the stories of it. So growing up in Falmouth, what first got you into the kind of the musical bug? What was the first thing that you got excited about with that?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, my father, and looking back now, kind of recalling where sort of it came from, was my dad, definitely music. He mostly brass and woodwinds. That was what he had, growing up. And so he encouraged us to do it. I picked up drumming. I always thought I wanted to be a sax player like him. So for whatever reason, when I was young, I was just like, oh, well, in that case, I'll play the clarinet. Because I was told that it's easier if you learn the clarinet and then move to the sax. But I got into drums, rhythm, percussion, all that kind of stuff. My older sister started playing guitar, taught me a few chords. Then all of a sudden, now I was playing the guitar. I wasn't allowed to play bass because my younger sister played bass. But now, past few years, I play bass now because it's like she's moved on and she's dancing a lot, and I don't, we don't get involved with each other. So, well, we do. We perform together, but not doing music. Because growing up, we're all trying to find our things, and when you're young and impressionable, you get encouraged, and all of a sudden, you just kind of go in a certain direction. And I was very fortunate that I had an avenue, because Falmouth is a lot of sports kids, and so I was lucky. I was like the kid who did music, so I did everything that was possible: band, jazz band, pit band, pep band, District 2, all state, all that kind of stuff. And I always had the support and encouragement, and then I went on from there to just playing bands locally. I graduated 2003, so I'm not as young as I look.
Not as young as you look. So back in the day, though, so you got mostly into drums right away.
Yes.
Was it, it's a typical kind of young guy, it's loud, it's exciting. Was it the physicality a little bit about it? And it's more cool, I guess. And it is, in a sense, I'd say easier than being like the guitarist, like at the early stages. I feel like the drums, being an okay drummer is easier than being a pretty good guitarist, just because of the preciseness of it.
Yeah. And in my case, it was simply by chance, because there was the 5th grade in Falmouth. We did it as like the 5th grade farewell talent contest, and I don't know who was in the contest. Nobody won. We were all freaking kids, but we ended up. There was the 3 kids who played guitar, also bass, there's a drummer named Alex Lund who is also a skateboarder. That's actually what he does now.
Okay.
Still, I mean,
Right.
nearly 40.
Yeah.
So he found and he was the drummer because he was the kid who had a drum set. And then he broke his wrist. So
you
these
can't
kids
fill
were like,
it in. Right.
who else can we get to play drums?
Right.
There's Capaldi.
Yeah.
And so they roped me.
And he broke his wrist skateboarding, most likely, because
that's exactly
I
what
remember I even had those wrist guards, because that was the thing you break the most, coming right down on your wrist.
You skateboarded?
I was a skateboarder in the 80s briefly, but then skateboarding in the 80s got really cool the early days of like when it got hot. But it got so hot at that point that every kid had a skateboard, and then it wasn't cool anymore. And then it kind of went underground for a while and stayed that way, I guess, till probably sometime in the 2000s. But yeah, I was an early skater in the kind of the 80s days. We had wrist guards, you had all of that stuff because you were kind of planting down and breaking wrists all the time. I wasn't a good skater, but I skateboarded.
Was it still like back then? Was it like tricks and ollieing and ramps, or was it
Yeah.
just transportation as much?
No, they were. This was after the 70s when they had found pools. They had, in California, they discovered pools.
Yep.
So in Maine, there was people that had built ramps, and so there was ramps in those days.
Cool.
Empty pools. Yeah, it got kind of like I say, it got so mainstream so quickly. Skateboarding is a subculture like music, where if a subculture hits like punk rock or something, when it gets so big, the big companies jump onto it,
Clear, yeah.
and then all of a sudden it's not cool anymore.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to skateboarding, and until it kind of came back a few waves later. But you became the drummer using his drum set.
No. At the time, they had a just this crappy drum pad,
Okay.
and then it was around. So my birthday's in April, and it's toward the end of the year. So, my dad bought me my first drum set. It was a $600 Pearl Export.
Okay.
And and it was my first drum kit. I had it for 2 weeks before the talent show.
Right.
And there's a video somewhere of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's made it online, but it was on like a VHS tape, and I was like, I had like a Beatles Magical Mystery Tour shirt that went down to my like ankles, and I was just like, I had these glasses on, I didn't know where I was,
Right.
and I had one fill I figured out, and I played it every other like measure, and it was hilarious.
Well, that's all you need at that point is that one special fill. So in those days, you're in high school. Did you kind of start working with Tony Boffa? Is it Boffa?
Boffa, yeah.
Boffa. And where did that factor in? Was that still in those days, or was that later on after you went to school?
That was later.
Later,
Because
okay.
that was, it was really just to kind of turn into middle school, which fortunately I had something in middle school, because middle school, as many people know, is it tests your
Yes.
ability to find self-confidence, and I failed in most areas, but fortunately I was cool. I was the Italian kid.
Right.
So the tough kids thought I was cool, and their parents were like, don't fuck with him, and then the music, I was very lucky to have that. But as I continued, Tony Boffa, Tony's wife Karen Boffa was the guidance counselor in the elementary school. In fact, I was friends with Tony's daughter Carrie Boffa, who was she was a swimmer, but I don't know how pressured she was, but she was she played bari sax, didn't seem all that excited about it. But I heard that, so her mom, when she would come to do Carrie had like a little like toy puppet dolphin, and she had this whole bit with it, and I heard later Carrie just like, yeah, my mom took that from me when I was a kid. I needed it. I cried all the time. And Tony even wrote a jingle for it. I don't remember. The puppet was called Duso, and it's, hey Duso, come on out, because she stuck it in a bag, and at the end it's kind of like a Big Bird ripoff sort of voice. But anyways, he knew me because he would come down, and he always had this kind of like old school mentor sort of attitude, and so he saw me performing in jazz band. He knew me through Carrie, and he invited me to join his Monday night ensemble. that he had at the Tony Buffa School of Music. So
Oh, okay.
I was there kind of getting that stuff, and then he hired me to play in his band.
Yeah.
We played on the, do you remember the Scotia Prince?
I do. I remember that. Yeah, definitely. Bad memories all the time for a lot of those.
I
Because
think for most people.
rough, seas, you get sick on it. Yeah, it wasn't the best. But he had his own school of music.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I tell people a lot, oftentimes, I studied very briefly, there was a place, these pop-ups, it was almost, because it was the Eddie Van Halen School of Music. And it was over by where the State Theater is. And it was basically some guy, and he was going to teach all of us, like young people, guitar, how to play like Eddie Van Halen, which he could do, which was all that crazy stuff on the fret. But I was like, okay, I'm out. And then I didn't even really do guitar after that. But that was the Eddie Van Halen School of Music. Tony Buffa must have been, was he more jazz and stuff?
Yeah. He was a Berkeley cat.
So as a drummer, I mean, what was your earliest influences? Because it seems like I've seen you playing with Hambone. He's like a kind of a blues, real fast, like Stevie Ray Vaughan. Sea Peoples is pretty much straight ahead, kind of new modern rock in a sense. Sparks, I mean, I'm sure you play probably with a country band once in a while if there's a gig. Like you can play anything, right? But what was your, because you went to, spoiler alert, you went to Berkeley School of Music, studied drumming, right?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, where did you what was your thing early on? You were really doing rock and some jazz too? Or?
It was the Beatles.
The Beatles.
It was the Beatles.
Okay.
And I got into the Beatles, and I loved the Beatles. And I remember my drum teacher when I was young, his name was Dick Demers. He passed away recently. But I remember as a little kid, I went in there and he asked me when I was, it's like, so who's your favorite drummer? And I was a little kid's like, Ringo. And he's like, and I remember he gave me this stern look and he kind of shook his head. He was like, Ringo Starr couldn't drum his way out of a paper bag.
Right.
I was devastated. But he told me, he was like, you should go home and listen to Joe Morello. Are you familiar with Joe Morello?
No, but
Dave Brubeck Quartet.
Okay, all right.
He's Dave Brubeck, and then he's just all like Take Five, that's his whole thing, and he, and it was just all this weird polyrhythmic stuff. It got me, and I really got into Joe Morello a lot. So my style now, naturally, I would say, is a blend between Ringo Starr and Joe Morello, which is a weird kind of.
At that age, you saw it's like Ringo gets all the girls. He's got, that's what was popular. But yeah, at that age, you didn't realize he's not like a flashy. I mean, is he a bad drummer or he just so drummer? Or maybe they don't want him to do that much because it's not really. The Beatles is not like a drumming band when you think about it. It's really more about John and Paul kind of doing their things. Feels like an early boy band. It's not like they're like, look, don't do too much on the drums, just keep the beat. Yeah. I always heard the same thing with the Rolling Stones, how the drummer from there, whatever his name is, Charlie Watts, that it was like, he passed away a couple years ago, but that he was not flashy either, but he was very steady. Mm. Yeah, I mean, that's a whole theory of drumming, I'm sure, is like, how much is the enough versus too much, right? Because you want to be able to do a lot of different things. But do you find that happens a lot of times with the musicians you play with? They're like, hey, I want it like on level 1 on the drumming versus level 10. Like keep it as simple, because this show's about me. I know an unnamed band, and they've worked with me a bunch of times, and they are mostly 3 guys. But there's a young guy that plays drums with them sometimes when they're out, and the lead singer doesn't want to have him play with them because he feels like the kid does too much wild stuff. But it really amps their sound up, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. But the lead singer feels like it's stealing his show.
Yes,
it's always an interesting dilemma, I'm sure.
Honestly, this concept is something that I've thought about a lot lately. And I was rehearsing with Whitney Walker earlier today. Yeah, we were just talking about it. Right. Is that like, and I'm trying to organize my thoughts in a way that won't alienate people listening to this, because I've been drumming since I was really young, and there's just these different levels of understanding that make you realize that the subtleties of how to be an effective drummer. If you're just drumming by yourself, you can do whatever you want, and it's relative to no one or nothing. Whereas if you're playing with a band, there's just a bit of listening, and and again, I'm not saying this well, but I think that like there's like with Sea Peoples, for example, I can play loud and flashy and draw a lot of attention to myself because I understand the subtleties of knowing where everything is. Like, for example, I'm not playing heavy and loud all the time, but when I play heavy and loud, it's because there's a place for me to stand out. I'm not competing with what other people are doing. Sometimes I am, but also too, it's like, if a drummer is playing loud all the time, then eventually you're going to get fatigued. Or if they're drawing attention all the time, the listener eventually won't have the option to pay attention to anything else. But if you're aware of it, and I hate name dropping, but I played a gig with John Fishman from the band Fish.
Yeah.
He was campaigning for Bernie Sanders in like 2016, and I was like, man, the second it was like Hillary, Trump, and Sanders, I just took a step back from life. I was like, this is clearly a mirror as to what's going on, and I need a second with this. And Will called me up. He's like, dude, we didn't sing John Fishman. You got to come up. We're playing with it. And I was just like, I don't want to support something that I have feelings about, that I need to make sense on my own. But I went up and did it anyways. And I was just, again, it was like this existential crisis. I was struggling. And I set up 2 drum kits, and I didn't meet him, but we played. He sat down and we sat in with Sea Peoples, and he was just like, again, just listening and finding his place in music that was already complete. And for the first couple tunes, it was like we were battling each other. It was like, it started off just a 16th note like thing, and he just gave me, and I look at him, I look at bass playing, and it was, and then at one point, like sometimes, so I'll fluctuate the tempo, and people that I play with long enough, they just feel it. And I play around with it because I'm like, whether or not they recognize the subtleties of what I'm doing consciously, at least we're all moving together, and that's special. And I would pull that, and then naturally, when he played, it would sound like he was up because he wasn't paying attention. But then we finished, and it was like 3 songs, and all of a sudden we finished the song. I go, and then we go into this Latin jam for like we went like 30 minutes over the set time because it was kind of just like, all right, here we go. And he showed me at that point, it was just like, we didn't even say a word to each other, but he's like, I know what you're doing. Even though you think that nobody cares or nobody can tell. It goes infinitely deep. And don't kid yourself. Because, again, like you were saying, you play with singers who have an ego and they don't want to not be in the focus all the time. So a lot of times there's a lot of just like, you sort of just response training of just like dirty looks and like, this is standing out. Not everyone, we don't want a Gene Krupa, we just want a beat. But like my condition, especially playing with so many bands, if I can't do what I do, like if I can't explore things naturally and in real time, either you got to pay me a lot of money,
right, yeah,
or I'm just not interested,
right.
And you can play loudly and proudly with respects to the other things around.
Yeah,
but you need to be real good, and you need to really have a lot of experience to know how to do that, to have the awareness, to have tried things again and again, and also every venue you play in, every stage, you hear things differently. You change one member in a band, and I got to learn how to play completely different. Because again, you shift a little energy. That's why I love like jamming with random people, because it's a playground where even somebody who's not experienced, like you need to pay respects to whatever insecurities you might be.
Right, yeah. It's like if an athlete or something, scrimmaging with different people or things like that, or going out in a basketball league, because different speeds, different paces, all those different things. So talking about that, we've talked a little bit about how you played with, I thought it was like close to 100 bands You think it's probably 88, you even said at one time, or 86, or it's over 50. Yeah.
I used to have a
Keep
running
it track.
list.
Yeah, go ahead.
I did.
Yeah.
And then I realized that it's not valuable to anybody but me and my own sense of like, accomplishment, which, so I stopped. I don't remember what the last one. I think the last one I put in there was Pretty Sad, that I played with. And then that was like 3 or 4 years ago. So I probably played with another 12, 15.
12 or 15 bands since then, exactly. Well, let's talk a little bit about your solo project, because you're also a producer as well. Sea Level, I've seen you play out. It's a one-person band, more or less, most of the time, right?
Yes.
And you're doing a lot of technology and things. Well, can you explain a little bit about what goes into that process? There's a lot of looping, things of that nature, and multimedia. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of came out like you mentioned that, like when I was going to school, I was at Berkeley, I started shifting toward film scoring, film composition. I discovered Danny Elfman, which, are you familiar with Danny Elfman?
Yeah.
So I saw The Nightmare Before Christmas, and it was like the only time in my life I was like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I got into composing, and Berkeley, at least back in I think 2006 when I went there, they give you a laptop that has GarageBand on it, and I love GarageBand. So I started making little demos, learning how to, layer things, blend things, learning how to harmonize with myself. So I got a lot of practice, like, just like building vocal harmonies and then ultimately creating little arrangements and then tying all those together. So at the time I was playing with a band called Cambiata,
Okay.
playing drums with them.
Yeah.
And the process of that was that we would all come to the band with demos that we had done independently on our own, and we teach them to the band. I was like, they would like give me one per album. They were like, yeah, we give Capaldi one.
Yeah.
So when the band broke up, I had all of these songs that I thought I had to run through a console, but instead I was like, these are mine.
Right.
And I could do all the arrangements I wanted. I could play all the parts the way I wanted them. That ended up being the first Sea Level album, actually, that I released in 2011. So I had a band for a little while, but it was a 3-piece. I could only get 3 people to play with me. And what ended up happening was it was so hard to go at my own pace, granted the fact that I was learning so many of these things on my own, and so I ended up breaking it down and just kind of getting into sampling and getting into looping, getting into various loopers and samplers and putting together my own sort of rig that allowed me to, turn it more into a sound installation where, and I really don't use a computer with MIDI syncing and stuff. It's all hardware. It's all approximate. That way things can slowly get out of phase, and it's something where when I'm up there, I'm just interacting with these pieces that are like moving, and I sometimes have to stop and so it's just a lot of muscle memory and training yourself and playing with things that are approximate, kind of like a DJ, while I'm presenting songs that have bits and pieces.
Right, and adding to it. Now, is it possible for the audience, do you have a clip of that we could take a look at now?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's take a look at that, and we'll come right back, talk some more about it.
Cool.
And the producing as well. We'll be right back. Back again. So that was Sea Level, and that is spelled SEA dash level,
You
right?
know,
Isn't it?
you know,
Or it doesn't really have a full.
well, here's the funny thing. I've
Yeah.
always been like C space level, capital S, capital L.
Yeah.
But there was a band in the '70s. No,
There
they
was.
were like the '80s, and featuring Chuck Leavell,
Okay.
who I guess was the keyboard player for. Again, I don't know, and I just like, I don't know. They were together for about 20% of the amount of time that I've been doing Sea Level. But people hate that I call myself Sea Level.
Right.
But so recently, I mean, again, is it like in releasing my new record that I'm coming out with, formatting came up, and so I made a decision to have it be Sea Level, all one word, all lowercase.
Okay.
You know?
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy. I don't have to change anything.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Well, so it's, as you can see, it's pretty interesting, different. I mean, you're an artistic guy in general. You like the arts a lot. I find that I've seen you doing other things like performing acting. I don't know. So your sister, I know she's a dancer.
Yes.
You don't really dance, I don't know per se, but a lot of these arts seems like.
I surround myself with dancers so
Yeah,
that I
yeah.
can feel
the
welcome
fun.
to
Right,
dance.
okay.
And so I've been focusing a lot on my own movement, and
Okay.
but that's what I being solo, finding the opportunity to share my music with other people who can do their own thing, and where I can do my own thing. That's kind of why I do it the way that I do, is because when I'm around dancers, I can feel that I can dance without shame.
Yeah.
And I can, explore these things and get better. So, it's really just the environment of being open and expressive and feeling free and feeling not self-conscious that, like, as long as I'm working toward that, like, I'm open to whatever details, whatever configurations. And Sea Level is not, the tricky thing is that it's not one thing. I present music within a large body of work that goes from the orchestral side to the hip hop side to the singer songwriter side, and depending on the environment that I'm in, like what gear makes sense to bring, I'll figure out what rig I'm doing, and I'll figure out, not necessarily to try to appease what I believe will be the demographic there. I do me. I do 100% myself all the time, but like, it can be in any number of directions. Like here on New Year's Eve, I'll probably do something that's more sample loop based. Whereas when I performed at the Army Fest up in Searsmont this last year, I got permission to use both outdoor stages, and I mixed my album to 4 speakers, and
Yeah.
it was awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
So I try to be resourceful and efficient.
Yeah. So, it seems to me in the sense of like all of the people you played with, and then as an interactive guy, because I see you go to the art walk, you like people. How has that affected what you also do, which is you're a producer? So you produce other people's music as well. And that seems to be, I'm imagining that learning from being around people, you've gotten more of an idea so you can tailor your producing even to them. Or how does that work? Maybe you really just have to be sensitive to what each artist wants. But I think being a people person must help.
Yes, like 100%. And the producer that I always looked up to growing up, John Wyman, he had a degree in psychology.
Okay. Yeah.
And, from what I understand, he learned much of what he, developed regarding producing and engineering, mostly just through doing and through, interning and stuff like that. So obviously the social skills of, and I'm going to say playing in bands, which I do believe is a skill in its own, because it has to do with yourself and your ego and realizing that what you need to do and the things you need to sacrifice to accomplish your goals of, like, helping a group of people to all feel good and to all move in a direction that we can all be proud of. Production's the exact same thing. Like, and to get back to what you originally asked, is that my skills as a producer I've developed through Sea Level and learning on my own how to accomplish certain things. Like, for example, to be able to have a piece of music that is both electronic and orchestral, that has elements that are to a click and elements that are conducted with a conductor. It's just a matter of problem solving. How do you accomplish that in the studio? And and a lot of times I'm building my own infrastructure. And when I work with other producers that are incredible at what they do, sometimes they'll see the way I do things and be like, never thought to do it that way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So when I work with other artists, I bring all of my skills and all of my talents and everything that I'm learning. And it's my goal to help them accomplish what they want to, and to help create a product that's most enjoyable to listen to.
Well, and I think that probably like a lot of arts, a lot of musicians get stuck in one world of things. And what I like is musicians who are like how I am with film, which is thinking outside the box and being innovative and seeing that the art form can go in a lot of different directions. And that's where it seems to me like my guess would be you got so talented at multiple instruments, you can reach a mental ceiling where there's nothing else to do. Like you're not going to get that much better as a drummer than you already are, right? So my only point is that becomes then you want to experiment with other things to add to it all outside of just that one instrument. Like maybe there's that one guy who all he ever wants to do is just a guitar for the rest of his life and get to more. We can do but now you've expanded the world in your mind, and that's where you see other people that they're shocked by, like, oh, I can't believe you could add this and this and this. Is that a right take on it, or
Yes.
you've wanted to do other things with it too, which all add to it?
Much of that, I think, is also has been out of necessity, in realizing that, like, as the world of music, arts, entertainment, technology, all of this stuff, as it evolves and certain streams of income evaporate and become replaced, it's really just instinctual, and it's how you survive to broaden your skills a little bit at a time, to become, sadly, to replace what used to be done by creative teams of people that all had financial incentive to work together and create something that's complex and elaborate.
Right.
To now, I need to save money because I don't have the budget that we used to have to ultimately do it all myself. And that's why it's very lonely doing these things on your own, as I'm sure you know, because if you have them, you got to pay them.
Right.
You should pay them.
Right. And it's funny because you say it, that's exactly what we go through all the time as being filmmakers or things, is that it is funny that you mentioned it. It's that necessity is the mother of invention. If you remember, that was something we saw on Saturday mornings. It was an old kind of schoolhouse rock type of thing.
Is that what they can...
Yeah, I feel like that was one of those things. But and it's an old adage. But the adage is that, sometimes you do have to figure out ways to make it all work, because if we're not in Hollywood and you can't spend $15,000 just to hire like one person to play the flute on your piece, you got to figure it out.
Yeah.
And you also want to be able to do it all live. And sometimes the fun thing is that I've been a big fan of Howie Day, who's also from Maine, and he had his heyday in the late 90s. I don't know if you remember Howie Day.
Yeah.
And he really was an early guy at the looping pedals with his acoustic. And that's what got him really successful. And then he went to Hollywood, and I was there living in LA. They packaged him out to be a new pop singer and all this. He wasn't cut out for it, didn't look like it, didn't act like it, and he flamed out. And his window of time was very short, but his thing was really that he was a genius of figuring it out for himself, and being, what I liked and what a lot of people liked was watching him on stage as you saw him do the looping pedals, figuring it out. Yeah, I saw him live back in the day. He's actually still goes and performs here and there. He's in his mid-40s now, but his large career is over. But yeah, I saw him in the early 2000s when he was really breaking out. And that was what was exciting. And that's kind of some of what people get excited about seeing you do, is you're getting to see the artist actually painting the painting.
Yes.
Or creating the sculpture right there. And that's a pretty cool experience that's interactive. sometimes more so than just seeing another band where it's like four guys, a bass player, a drummer. There isn't anything exactly new to that. I don't want to paraphrase for you, but I mean, sometimes that can be fun too. I know it's not a necessity, but you find that the audience digs it too, right? Getting to see you kind of doing a lot of different things and watching it all come out of the ether in a sense.
Yeah, it's funny, and what you just described, I see as applying to sort of waves that come in and out of what people are looking to get out of music, and I'll sort of elaborate on that in the sense that like I feel that you know in the 90s I feel that we all wanted to be mystified by something that was so big and so elaborate that was going to blow our minds and fill us with stimulation. And then I think once reality TV became sort of a normal thing and rock documentaries and stuff, now all of a sudden people are interested more so in the artists and who they are and where they came from because they want to feel alive. They want to feel some sort of a connection with it. And it's like there have been times when I've played, and I've been realizing recently in with putting together my album release, I'm like, what other bands do I play with? Who are my, and I hate the term ally, but who are the natural artists that I would invite to join me?
Yeah.
And there really aren't any because
Right.
like I'm the person who you put somewhere and I do something different and I do my own thing. I do it for myself. And I feel that being myself and being 100% myself and being joyful and loving being there and having a sense of gratitude is really the best thing you can do to show respect for the audience that shows up rather than being like, I'm going to give you what I think you want.
Right.
That becomes very material and very
Right.
shallow after a while. And it annoys me when people they're like, no, I know this crowd. I know who this crowd is, so I'm going to play these songs. I'm like, you don't know who the crowd is. Be yourself. Give them the opportunity to have an opinion of what you do naturally.
And the oldest adage also with myself as a filmmaker a lot of times is if you're always chasing whatever people want now, you're like one step behind. So you need to, they always say just do what you do. If people come to you, that's great. If not, then that, but if you're always kind of like chasing what the next big thing is, you'll never catch up to it too. I mean, that's just another thing and with music, it's hard to even really try to figure that out other than, because you want to be able to be accepted with your music. But I'm again paraphrasing, but I would bet you probably think, look, you just do what you do and there will be a group of people. It might not be everybody, and leave that to the bubblegum pop people or somebody that's like creating, or now AI, they'll create a song that's like, here's exactly what every person wants all in one. And it can do that, I'm sure, and it already has. But yeah, I mean, it's more about the personality behind it. But let's cut to what we want to talk about, which is where are you going to be playing? You're playing right before the New Year's show. I want to make sure that we get that out to everybody.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that.
Yeah, the Ephodian, right?
The Ephodian, yes. And I just want to, I can't say enough about the Ephodian. Because Pat Corrigan, who runs it, all the people involved in there, Pat let me stay there and work there at a time where I lost my home and I had nowhere to go, and I was doing the best I could. So I moved what was my home studio into a little room over there, and to pay it forward, I offer free multi-track production for anybody who performs there.
Okay.
If you reach out to me and you say my band's playing there, I will show up super early. I'll set up microphones and I have my own, again, it's separate from the front of house. I'm doing my own thing and I will offer that to anybody there. I'm not going to record my show because I don't want it to be documented. I'm going to do some cool shit that's going to blow people's minds. And my special guest man is one of the most incredible people. There was one name that came up when I was thinking, who do I want to perform with? I didn't think he'd do it. He's kind of a big celebrity, but it ended up, I I know there's this band called the Bogmen.
Yeah, yeah.
They were kind of big in the 90s. I wasn't into them until recently. Sea Peoples has opened up for them a bunch, and it like sold out, like, where was it? Webster Hall in New York, and the Sinclair in Boston. Like, and this guy Billy Campion, who's a singer, he's just, I don't know. Like when I was young, I don't know if you saw the same thing, but like
Yeah.
as a young Italian kid, I would see the older Italians as they get older, they just get more miserable, and then they're kicking and screaming, and then they die. And I'm like, I just saw so much of that there's a point where I was like, well, that's gonna happen. So when I see people that are doing what I'm doing and continuing, following their passions, and I see them into their 50s and 60s and doing it gracefully and joyfully, I'm like, it fills me with something that is so valuable. And this guy Billy, like when he performs, he has this respect for the audience, for himself, for the music, for his bandmates. He's just such an incredible singer, and when he performs independent of the Bogmen, he goes under the alias Vic Thrill.
Okay.
And Vic Thrill will be splitting the bill.
Splitting the bill. Okay. And so how do people find tickets? Is that Aphodian.com maybe? Or
That's a good question.
Yeah, they'll find it or look you up on Facebook.
Yeah.
For Sea Level or Dan Capaldi on there.
If you,
Or a lot of the folks that go to that go a lot to those shows and they buy them at the door sometimes.
Yes.
Okay.
I am going to at some point create like an Eventbrite, I think, ticket link so that we can do that. Again, Aphodian is just it's such a little scene subculture that the idea of selling tickets and doing that just seems kind of funny. But also, I did decide after talking to Billy that I am going to promote it online. And if I sell above a certain amount of tickets to cover my expenses, we're going to do 2 shows that day.
Okay. Interesting. And that's December 30th, which is a Saturday, because I know
Yes.
our event is December 31st. And you're going to play a couple songs for us that night as well, live on TV.
Yes.
Yeah. So anything they should look for with that? Something fun or different? Just watch for it. It's going to be interesting.
You mean like insight into what I'll be doing on
New Year's Eve? You said it'd be something a little different.
That's a good question, but it will be something different, and it will. Yeah, I can't tell you what it's going to be.
And it'll be that night along with comedy, a lot of different music. Watch for that. And look for you on Facebook, right? Dan Capaldi, if they want to be your friend on Facebook, you don't mind that.
No, and then I hate to say this, but like Instagram. I mostly
Instagram.
promote on Instagram and Tinder these days.
Yeah.
So Instagram, I have 2 of them. One of them is DC, as in my initials, Dan Capaldi. Sea Level, DC Sea Level, is I'm mostly going back through the past 10 years of my life and paying tribute to all of the studios I've worked with and pets that I've been friends with, alternating one after another. If you want to hear the story of everything I've done and where I've come from, that's what I've done for that outlet. My other one is Dan Capaldi Official.
Okay.
And that's where I'm promoting stuff,
Yeah.
like the bands I'm in, the shows I'm doing, the people I'm working with. Like that's like a more traditional, like, promotional type.
And those are Instagram and
They're both Instagram. Oh, and Tinder, you can find me on there. I'm promoting on Tinder as well.
Tinder or Twitter?
Tinder. Yeah.
I thought Tinder was the dating site.
Well, if you want to have a talk about that, I'll show you how I'm using it untraditionally to accomplish my goals.
Well, let's save that for the next time. Thank you very much, Dan. We'll be right back right after this. Thanks again.
Cheers.
Thanks. I want to thank Dan Capaldi. He's a great guy. It was an interesting interview. But right now, we're really excited to show you a sneak preview of some of the musicians that are going to be on the New Year's Eve live show. Not everybody is going to be able to be there live, so we filmed a few of the really hot musicians earlier this week. We're going to see a little showcase of them now, and then we'll talk a little bit more after that. So stick with us.
Hello, everybody. I am Elena Hubble, and wishing you the happiest new year into 2024. I will be performing 2 songs today. And this first one is called Doing Fine. It's when you're in a little of a rut and need to get out, and I sing this song. I hope you enjoy. Doing lot to say. On the days when you feel like giving up, just remember you're strong enough to keep your head up, cross that finish line. You're gonna make it, you're doing fine. Oh, your day's going slow, you just wanna go home. Turn that working clock out at 4. Get your makeup done, put your dancing shoes on, and dance like you never danced before. When you feel the groove, you know you'll be okay. And on the days when you feel like giving up, just remember you're strong enough to keep your head up, cross that finish line. You're gonna make it, you're doing fine. On the days when I feel like giving up, I remember I'm strong enough to keep my head up, cross that finish line. I'm gonna make it, I'm doing fine.
All right. So this is a holiday song I wrote about a year ago. It's called Lemon Drop, and I haven't done much with it, but I thought it was apropos to do the song for the season. All right, Lemon Drop. All right. Tis the season. It's been a while. As the plane touched down, the snow begins to fall. Feel at home again. Walked into this bar in this whole New England town. Everybody knows my name and we're all the same, yeah. I'm coming slow once to the cars, you know I'm ready to get on. With my nights already. Once I let the music drop, it's really hard for me to stop. If my cup is empty, please you fill my cup up. And the people say, and the people say, yeah, the people say, and the people say, yeah. Bartender for me, she said, what will it be? Everybody turn around and then they shouted for me. Bartender for me, what will it be? Everybody turn around and they shouted, give him a lemon drop. Sour, sweet sugars on the rim is alright with me. Coffee, brandy, or some gin. The lady to my left is just to wipe my chin. Home again, I'm on holiday in Maine, and I'm here for the holiday. If there ain't no DJ, ain't no band, I'm on this microphone and trying to start this jam. Singing notes, yeah, sharing thoughts, waving out the memory as we dance Tybo stomp. Home again, I'm on holiday in Maine, and I'm here for the holiday, yeah. I had a lemon drop, sour and sweet shoe. Cause on the rim is alright. Coffee, brandy, or something. The lady to my left is just a white merchant. Home again, holiday in Maine. And I'm here for the holiday. Here for the holiday. Just let me drop.
Happy New Year, everybody. Looking forward to a great 2024. My name is Carmine Teresiano out of Portland, Maine. And here's a little something from Ray Charles. Let me tell you about a girl I know. She's my baby and I love her so. Every morning when the sun comes up, she gives me coffee in my favorite cup. That's why I know, hallelujah, how I love her so. When I'm in trouble and I have no friends, I know she's with me to the very end. Everybody asks me how I know. I smile at them and say she told me so. That's why I know, hallelujah, how I love her so. Now when I call her on the telephone and I tell her that I'm all alone, by the time I count from 1 to 4, she's knocking at my door in the evening when the sun goes down and there ain't nobody else around. She kisses me and she holds me tight and she says, oh baby, everything's alright. That's why I know, hallelujah, how I love her so. Now when I call her on the telephone and I tell her that I'm all alone, by the time I count from 1 to 4, she's knocking at my door in the evening when the sun goes down and there ain't nobody else around. She kisses me and she holds me tight and she says, oh come on, everything's alright. That's why I know, hallelujah, how I love her so. Hallelujah, how I love her so. Hallelujah, how I love her so. Thank you, guys.
So that's our show for you. I want to thank Dan Capaldi. I want to thank the musicians from 1800 Mexican. That's a great restaurant. So what I do need to do right now is I need to ask the viewers out there, watch us New Year's Eve live. It's for a good cause. We're raising money for the families in Lewiston. Also watch Down East Christmas. We're going to be playing all this month, every Saturday at 8, and a Christmas marathon to make Down East Christmas our own Maine-made movie that we made here in Portland and around the state, a Christmas classic. So watch that. Watch it on my YouTube too, Luigi Scarcelli's YouTube page. We'll put a little link on it here for you. So I want to thank you again. It's been a great week. Look forward to many more. Watch us live New Year's Eve. It's going to be a special show. Thanks a lot.